Thank you, Chairman Hudson, for holding this hearing, and thank you, Administrator Ross, for being here today. Georgia has been recognized as the best state, my home state, to do business in 12 years in a row, and obviously because of our favorable business environment there, but also the cost of deployment of resources and that kind of thing. In fact, a home in California costs 3 times the same home built in Georgia. So in deploying these funds, it's interesting. Again, we make governance for deploying funds throughout the country, but doing business in some states is nearly impossible because of either labor agreements or other things, which affects my district. But getting back to Chairman Guthrie talking about the 2.7 gigahertz band, he talked about the timeline. Can you tell me a little bit about the factors that present the greatest risk to that timeline and what this committee and Congress can do to assist NTIA in expeditious identification in the auction? What's holding this up?
So maybe I could just mention, thank you for meeting me in your office. It was really great to meet with you, and I agree with your point that regulatory conditions in a state are very important for ensuring swift deployment of broadband. It's something that we've really taken to heart in BEAD. And I think, was your question about spectrum?
Yeah,
okay.
spectrum.
Okay.
What's holding up the auction?
So I would say we are moving aggressively and nothing is holding anything up. We are working aggressively across all the bands that we're studying to get them identified and into the marketplace as quickly as possible.
What can Congress do to expedite this?
Yeah, I think one of the things to look at is potentially timelines for the ability to secure spectrum relocation funds, which is a critical part of NTIA's work to identify spectrum for commercial use. But that being said, we are working aggressively. We just the SRF funds for the 2.7 gigahertz band just completed the congressional notification process, so funds are going to be available imminently to begin those studies, and we're working across all of the bands that we're identifying.
Okay.
We're going to get 7 gigahertz identified.
So things are moving as fast as the government can move.
Yeah, we are working around the clock to get spectrum identified. Given its
all right, I've got a few more questions. Rural broadband access and the connectivity issues remain a top concern for my constituents, again, because of the policies of the previous administration as far as labor agreements and all this other stuff. Recently, NTIA chose to apply FCC pole attachment rules and regulations across the entirety of a pole owning sub-grantee's footprint as a condition of participation in the BEAD program, including to entities like cooperatives that are exempt from these rules. Can you explain the requirement and the rationale for including it in BEAD?
Thank you, Congressman. I think it really goes back to your point that ensuring that there's a hospitable environment to innovation is critical to our ability to deliver on our statutory obligation of ensuring BEAD projects are carried out in a timely and effective manner. We've really tried to learn from the past, and one of the past lessons that we know is that pole access can be a serious impediment when it comes to getting projects deployed in a timely and effective manner. And so our job is to ensure that BEAD doesn't get held up by pole access. So and that there is a COP on the BEAD. Section 224 of the Communications Act still applies, and state laws still apply to the extent that they govern municipal and cooperative poles. But there is a risk that in BEAD, that because pole owners have entered BEAD markets, that incentives aren't necessarily aligned with the goals of BEAD, and so we just need to have a COP on the beat.
Well, these co-ops, Electrified America, they're doing great work. Come down and talk to them about how best to do this, and before you implement something that they have to deal with. I have another question. I'll submit it for the record because I'm out of time, and I'll yield back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman, the chair, and I'll recognize